Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin. This happened like 4 or 5 years ago. When I was like 17 years old, I had a girlfriend. I'm also a girl. And I was at her house for the day. At this time, I didn't have a good relationship with my mom, so I would sleep for weeks at my best friend's house. So I realize it's like 1 a.m., and I decide to call an Uber, as I live in a kind of small city, so buses stop passing by at 10 p.m. approximately. I call the Uber and ask it to wait at the end of the block, so it wouldn't have to take an unnecessary turn. When I got there, my girlfriend went with me so I can say goodbye. We hugged and kissed, but that kind of kiss that lasts like 2 seconds. I waved to her as I turned to sit on the passenger seat of the car and say hello to the driver. He replied my greeting and started driving. He looked okay at first, but I was really wrong. He was in his late 40s. His head was shaved and had a large tattoo on his arm. He asked me if I was a student, and I replied yes. Then he asked what I was studying at college, and I told him that I was actually at my last year of high school. He said that I look a lot older, and I just laughed awkwardly. This is when things started to go down. The conversation went something like this.
Was that your girlfriend? The girl you kissed?
Oh, yeah.
How long have you been together?
A year and a half.
Whoa, that's a really long time. Are you a lesbian?
Why?
Don't be ashamed. I'm not homophobic or something. I actually really like lesbians.
Oh.
So you are a lesbian. How do you have sex if none of you has a dick?
I really don't want to talk about that.
Sex is normal. I want to know how you two do it. Have you ever been with a man?
Sorry, but I don't think it's appropriate to talk about this.
I've always wanted to experiment a bit and have a threesome with 2 girls. Do you like men?
Not really.
It's okay, we don't literally have to have sex. I could just stand there and look as I touch myself.
We are not interested in that kind of stuff.
How do you know you don't like men if you have never been with one? Have you ever wondered how it is like?
Friendly reminder that I was 17 at the time. My girlfriend's 16. And this creep was kind of 40. At this point, I'm freaking out. This guy was taking another route to take longer to arrive to my friend's house. And I remember thinking, well, these are the last moments of my life. This guy is taking me somewhere else. Maybe it sounds a bit extreme, but where I live, it is not that uncommon that this stuff kind of happens. I'm an atheist, but a fucking miracle happened, and my friend called me. I put him on speaker, and he asks me how much more I'm going to take because he was worried. So I reply that the Uber driver is taking another route, but I'll be there soon, and ask him to wait for me at the front door. The creep panicked and took me to my friend's place. I opened the door and ran as fast as I could to hug my friend. At the moment I walked in the house, I just fell to the ground and cried my soul out. I genuinely thought I would die that day. I've worked in restaurants for almost 10 years, and I'm accustomed to getting out late. One night after finishing a double shift at a ramen spot, I had my usual beer and decided to Uber home. My Uber arrived, checked the plate and all, and the gentleman confirmed my name. I spent half of the ride almost dozing off. As the ride progressed, I noticed the driver kept staring at me through the mirror. Never said a single word, no expression, just a blank stare. I figured exhaustion and the beer had gotten the best of me, and he was probably staring because he thought I was drunk. Later on, I also noticed that he had taken a different highway and that we were making our way through Rikers Island. It was a route I wasn't accustomed to. But he had his ways open, and I figured he was trying to take some sort of shortcut. We kept getting further into Rikers Island, and the area had become full of trees and construction machines, neon cones, and cracked cement. He came to a sudden stop.
My car just broke. Get out and call a new Uber.
I was confused. There hadn't been any indication that a tire had popped, or it ran out of gas, etc. I got out, and before I asked anything, he stepped on the gas and sped off, car perfectly fine. Alone by a construction zone, I started freaking out and called another Uber. When he first arrived, his first question was why I was in the middle of nowhere, especially so late, 1 a.m. at this point. I told him about the other Uber, and he urged me to report it. Reported it, checked the profile, 4.8 stars, same license plate, but it was not the same man in the same picture. The report never really got anywhere. I can't help but feel I encountered a possible murderer or rapist.
Just for some info, I'm 20 and a male. So I thought it was just an ordinary delivery. Little did I know that was completely wrong. I arrived at the restaurant to pick up the order and everything went smoothly. Shortly after, I make my way to the drop-off location when I noticed the Uber Eats GPS directing me to a gas station. So I didn't think much about it, as many people often pick up from gas stations. I then get a text stating the apartment number, as if it was supposed to be the drop-off location. I then see apartments in the back, and I try to circle around to head there. Not even a minute goes by and a lady comes to my passenger side window, so I asked her was the order for her. She didn't give me a clear answer, but she asked if I could drop her off at her hotel and she'd pay me $20. So me being the dumb good Samaritan, I unlocked the doors and let her in. She then says she left something at a nearby store, so I went there. She then signals her friend, which they begin to chat. Her friend gives me sexual compliments on my looks and whatnot. She then gets out of the car and lets her friend in very quickly. Her friend then tries to seduce me into doing sexual acts with her. Mind you, I'm pretty young, so I tell her that I'm 17. Not my real age, but it's close. When I tell her that I'm 17, she laughs and says,
So what?
While she's trying to seduce me, she reaches for my wallet, looking for money and reads my ID. It did not state I was actually 17, but she must have had bad vision because she read it and said,
Oh, wow. You actually are 17?
She then tries to take my wallet with her, but I grab it back, but she takes a few dollars and leaves. The original girl then comes back to the car and the friend was yelling,
I don't want to get in the car. He's underage.
So the original girl apologizes for her friend.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. Sorry.
And we drive to her hotel and I drop her off and wait a few minutes for her to come outside and give me that $20. I then drive off because I started to get suspicious and I still had to drop off the Uber Eats food. So I drive off and pull over to a nearby gas station. I was stunned and thought about what happened for a few minutes. And to my surprise, I found what seems to be a tracking device that could possibly track your location, sound, and camera, then destroy it, and make my way to the drop-off location. I arrive and knocked on the door. In that moment, the person cancels the order so they get free food. I then drive off, pissed I didn't get paid, yet thankful nothing else happened.
I was debating on posting this here, but the more I think about it, the more unsettled I feel. There is a bar down the road from me where I sometimes go after work to have a much-needed drink. The other day, when my car was in the shop, and I was in the mood to chill at a bar and eat some greasy food, I texted my friend and asked if she wanted to go with me. She said yes and offered me a ride. However, she had obligations she needed to get to and couldn't stay long. I told her that was fine. I would call myself a cheap Uber to get home. As soon as my friend leaves the bar, this man, bald, tall, skinny, mid-60s, comes over and immediately takes her seat. At this point, I'm waiting on the Togo I ordered, and I was actively searching for an Uber. I was having a difficult time finding one, and he had to be watching my frustration because he asked.
Can't find a ride?
To which I reply, I'm trying to find an Uber, it's just taking a while.
Do you live close by? I'll take you.
No, thank you. I will wait for my Uber. Minutes later, he tells me he found me a Lyft, and they'll be here in 4 minutes. I tell him I'm going to find my own Uber, but thank you. 5 minutes passed, and I could feel his eyes boring into me. He receives a phone call, and it's from the Lyft driver, and he lets me know they are there, and if I'm still interested and I want a ride. I decline, again. At this point, my Togo has arrived, and I am out the door. I did find an Uber shortly after while waiting on the sidewalk, and didn't think too much about the interaction, as I was just happy to be home. But the more I think about it, this man was so adamant about getting me in that Lyft. He didn't even know where I was going. What was the destination for that ride? I'm thinking that inner feeling that told me not to accept a ride from this man. For context, my friend and I who are part of this are both girls. My friend and I were going up to Massachusetts to visit a college campus together. We planned on staying at an Airbnb that was close to the college. Unfortunately, the Airbnb was about an hour and 40 minutes away from the airport. The only way we can get from one place to another was take an Uber. I ordered the Uber and it arrived in about 15 minutes. As the Uber pulled up, the Uber driver, let's call him Max, rolled down his window. The first thing I thought of was how he looked like a bigger version of the guy from Split, and stared at my friend and I for about 15 seconds. Feeling uncomfortable, I asked who he was there to pick up, to be cautious, and he said my name. My friend and I hopped into the back seat of the car. Once we closed the doors, the first thing Max did was look at us in the rearview mirror and said,
This is going to be a real nice ride with two pretty girls in my car.
The way Max said this sent chills down my spine. My friend and I probably showed our discomfort because quickly after he tried to tell us that he didn't mean it in that way. However, he had already given us bad vibes, and because of this, I wanted to get rid of the awkward silence, so I began to start conversation. As we drove, we went through the back roads of rural Massachusetts, and it was dark. No streetlights whatsoever. I asked why it was so dark, and Max had chuckled and told us.
Yeah, it's so dark that I could drive into that ditch and no one would ever know.
Alarm bells started ringing in my head, but we had only 20 minutes left. Max had begun to say how much he would miss us and stuff. We kept quiet. Meanwhile, I was looking at Google Maps on my phone to make sure he didn't try anything, and, of course, he decided to make a right turn instead of a left. I told him he was going the wrong way, and he told us he wasn't. I assured him it was wrong, and he got angry. He began telling us how he met his wife because his friend cheated on her, and he found her in a bar or something. Then, he told us that his wife makes him so mad that he wants to strangle her. My heart sank when I heard this, but we were 5 minutes away. When we arrived to the Airbnb, Max started to take off his seatbelt and told us he would help us with our luggage in the back. However, neither one of us put anything there. We only had book bags. My friend and I quickly got out and walked away, and Max turned off his engine and told us,
I'll keep in touch.
We went into the Airbnb, wonderful people, and I reported him and deleted my Uber account. English is not my first language, and I'm writing on my phone, so I apologize in advance for any mistakes. This happened 3 years ago, while my former relationship was ending. I was 27 years old. Me and my ex-boyfriend weren't living together anymore. We were separated for a few months, but not quite broken up yet. I had just found out from his twin brother that he was keeping me as a backup while having fun with other girls, so I decided to end things. It was my birthday. I was a bit emotional about this whole situation, so I decided to go to his place and end it properly, face to face. I took an Uber and went to the other side of town, very far away from where I live, in a not so friendly or safe area for girls. I got there. We talked and ended things on good terms, given the situation. Now it was time to call an Uber and go back home. This was happening in November, on a rainy night at about 2 a.m. My ride came. I got in and I was just looking out the window and thinking. After 5 minutes or so, I noticed that my Uber driver was looking at me in the rear view, in every second when he could take his eyes off the road. I brushed it off. This wasn't the first time when it happened, and I was honestly pretty sad to care. But then I noticed that he slowed down. A lot. This was when I started to pay attention to my surroundings, but without giving him the sensation that I was doing so. I noticed that he was a thin and tall guy, 25 to 30 years old. He looked like he wasn't taking very good care of himself, and his car was actually pretty dirty. I was just hoping to get home safe and faster at this point. Then, out of nowhere, he started talking.
You are beautiful.
Thanks.
What's your name?
There was a long pause, and then I whispered my name. I realized that he could see it in the Uber app anyway.
What a hot name. I've always wanted to have sex with a girl named...
My name. Total, terrified silence. He started talking and rambling without pause, but expecting clear responses and reactions from me.
Do you have a boyfriend?
Yes.
What a shame. I wanted you for myself.
Silence.
But I don't mind the boyfriend. Let's go somewhere else. Come on, change the address in the app, because I can't. Only you can. I know a place where we can be alone and smoke some weed.
No, I can't. Take me to the address from the app. At this point, I started to pay close attention to the route he was taking. I was so ready to jump out of the car if the situation had gotten really dangerous. Then he puts on a local rap song which I never heard before. The lyrics were very explicit, describing what the singer does to a girl during sex. Extremely explicit lyrics.
Hear that? That's how having sex with me would be like. Oh yes, I would totally lick you like that and pull your hair until you can't even scream anymore. You will love it and come back begging for more.
Total silence. At this point, I started messaging my ex and telling him what was happening. It was also a good excuse to not have to look at him or reply.
What do you think about that?
Silence. Texting my ex.
I asked, what do you think about that?
My heart dropped. I froze. Well, I haven't heard this song before.
Do you smoke weed?
No.
Smoke a joint with me.
No, thank you.
Are you home alone? I could call it a night and go to your place and show you what I'm talking about.
My heart was racing so bad at this point. I was so scared and shaking so hard. I was home alone. Actually, living alone. I decided to start recording him from here on and send the recording to my ex. No, my parents are waiting for me.
Ugh, that sucks, man. But we can stay in the car. I'll join you on the back seat. We'll find a spot where it's dark.
No, I need to go home. I'm tired.
Come on, I'll make you come 3 times in 10 minutes. Trust me. Where did I put that weed?
And he started searching for it. My ex listened to this part and called me. I was so relieved when I saw my phone ringing. I answered and I made sure that that driver would hear that I'm on the phone with someone. He kept on talking, but I didn't hear much because he seemed to be upset about my phone call, and he was most likely talking to himself. My ex was furious, but told me to say out loud things like where I am, when I get home, as if he was asking me and I was answering, and other stuff like my mom texted me and is waiting for me, to say that I will call him when I get home, etc. I ended the phone call and the driver asked me if that was my boyfriend. I said that it was. He kept silent for about 5 minutes, and I was so anxious to get home. We had like 5 more minutes before getting to my address. When he saw on the map that we were getting close, he started to ask me again to go somewhere or stay in the car with him, to smoke with him, to tell him everything about me and my life, that he thinks he fell in love, to break up with my boyfriend. His speech was getting scarier and he was getting more and more anxious that he couldn't convince me. He was turning to look at me, stop at green stops so he could turn to me. After what seemed like forever, and after shaking like a leaf, when we got in front of my building, I practically jumped out of the car while he was like,
No, don't go. Where's your apartment? Let me come with you.
I ran and entered the building. I had previously taken my keys out of my bag to open the intercom. I didn't turn on the light in the staircase because I didn't want him to see where in the block I live. It's a small block with 4 floors only. I stood there in the darkness and peeked out the window to see if he was gone. He wasn't. He was looking at the block, probably waiting to see exactly where the lights would turn on, aka where I live. I couldn't even enter my apartment because I had left the lights on in my hallway and he would have seen that. I waited like 5 minutes and he slowly left. I quickly entered my apartment and locked everything, but I did not turn on or off any lights, so it wouldn't seem like someone got home or something. I went to peek out the window to be sure he had left, but, surprise, he was back and parked this time. I was scared out of my mind. I know that many would say that I should have called the police, but in my country the police doesn't come for stuff like this. They barely show up in an hour if someone is being beaten or something. So he was there, just sitting there. Then I get a message from an unknown number, telling me to come back down because he's waiting for me. I froze. I froze and cried at this point. It was like my life could completely change because of a 30 to 40 minute ride with this unstable person. I didn't even know how he could take my number from the Uber app, or if he buzzed me when he arrived to pick me up. I couldn't even remember. I didn't reply. He sent a few more messages. I remember that one in particular really creeped me out. He was asking me to at least smoke a cigarette with him on the phone so he can hear me breathing and smoking. I texted back saying to leave me alone. He started calling and I blocked the number. I was afraid that he would get so angry and try to get into the building and find me. I was looking out the window from behind a curtain and I saw that after I blocked him, when he tried to call and couldn't, he started smashing his phone against the steering wheel. He finally left after 40 minutes or so of staying there. I remained keeping watch for another 2 hours or so. He didn't return, thank God. The next day he messaged and called from another number, but I blocked that one as well. He tried one more time 1 year later. I was so surprised, honestly. I blocked that number too and never heard from him again. I'm also glad that I never saw him or his car again either. Although, right now I don't really remember how he looked like or what type of car he had. I reported everything to the Uber app, and I hope that they took measures. Honestly, I don't understand why nobody before me reported him. I didn't feel like this was his first time when he did this. It was somehow so easy for him. Ugh, one of the worst experiences ever. Thank you so much for reading. This turned out to be way longer than I expected. I was living in Tampa, Florida in 2018, right when there was a serial killer announcement. The news reported they caught a guy a few weeks later, but to this day, my gut tells me they got the wrong guy. So, here's my story. It was April 20th, 2018, so you know what I was doing, and a lot of it. But keep in mind, at this point in my life, I was a constant stoner for 7 years. Weed didn't affect me the same way. My boyfriend at the time and I agreed to start the night at different friends' houses, since his friends didn't smoke and mine did. Top the fact that I was about to move to a different state, and it would be the last time I would see my friends for a while. So around 10 to 11 p.m., I would take an Uber to get to his friend's house. The night was highly normal up until this point. So I order the Uber, and the Uber driver drops off my other friends at their houses along the way. So being the person I am, I strike up a conversation for the 30 minutes ride. How are you doing? Are you seeing a lot of high people tonight? My normal questions. I hate silence, and this is who I am as a person. After we get through some small talk, he starts asking where I'm going, and I explain everything above. Asks why I'm not partying with my boyfriend at the time, and my dumbass explains I'm not sure if we are going to make it with the move, and he doesn't love me anymore. Then he starts asking if my mom knows where I am, if people know I'm coming, and when do my friends we just dropped off expect me home? Do I live with them? And thankfully,
I caught on that these were weird questions to ask someone traveling alone. So I started lying, saying my mom is expecting me to call as soon as I arrive, and how I was getting texts in the group chat to tell them when I was at the other party safe. Once we arrived, of course like a fucking horror movie this night was feeling like, the other friend's house was in the woods on the edge of Tampa, and my high ass was in the other drive trying to figure out how to get out of this one. We finally can see my friend's house and a little bonfire about 300 feet away, when he stops and says this is where he will drop me off. I ran out of that car ASAP, and he hightailed it out right as I closed the door. Thank God I didn't leave anything in the Uber. I know it's not the craziest encounter, but my gut is rarely wrong about these things. I didn't think about this again until I saw the news when they announced that they caught the guy. I don't know. I hope this was worth being late to work to type out. So it all happened a few months ago. It was my friend's birthday. We had a few drinks. The night went well. But my friend was wasted, so some of his friends took him and I was waiting for a lift outside. Then a car stopped right before me, and a man asked me what I was doing. Being a little over tipsy, I said I was waiting for my ride. He proceeded to tell me that he is an Uber driver, and his client just canceled and he'll take me in. Right there, I started to feel uneasy, but I said it was fine and that I'm waiting. He demanded I cancel my trip and get in his car. I'm not dumb, I didn't cancel, but showed him that the nearest Uber was 8 minutes away, and he's right before my eyes, so he's obviously lying. And for some reason, he shows me Google Maps, as if it would prove anything to me. It made him seem even more suspicious. He was being really persistent, but luckily there was a cop car behind him, so he left. I was relieved for a second, but then, 2 minutes later he comes back, and I tell him that my ride is literally here, and it was cheaper anyways, so I won't take him. He said he will take me for €8, cash. It's illegal for Uber to take cash, so I was pretty sure he had ill intentions. At this point, I just freaked out and thought he could snatch me any time now. He then moved his upper body closer to me, as if he was trying to pull me. I was gonna fight back, but I wasn't really prepared to. Some group, my friend's friends I guess, asked me if I was okay and if he was bothering me. Right there I explained to them everything, and they yelled at him. He then said,
I didn't do anything to her.
And argued some more, and then left. They stayed with me till my ride was there, and even checked the plate number and stuff. Needless to say, I was pretty shocked, and thankful I wasn't more drunk, and also thankful they saved me from that situation, 'cause I don't know where I would have ended up. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he ever done that in the past to some other drunk girls, or if he still tries to this day. If you have any stories that you would like to see narrated here on the channel, please go into the subreddit and submit them there. The link is in the description. Also, we do have a Discord now. Thank you so much to Creepy Clown Girl for putting it together for us. You can come hang out with me and other narrators and get the party started, get spooky with us. That link is also in the description as well. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to introduce the King of Panic. We have a lot of brand new content coming soon with him in it. He is very talented. He does not have his own channel. He just kind of wants to be a part of this. So if you would like to hear from him once you start and you like his voice, stay tuned here. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.